best source of energy for the years 2020 to 2050?
Years 2020 to 2050.
R. Nuclear.
Nuclear!
Go nuclear! Sakto na.
A nuclear power plant is a thermal power station in which the heat source of energy is the nuclear reactor. So nuclear power is the use of sustained nuclear fission that generates heat and electricity. So as of 2012, nuclear power plants generated 5.7% of the world's energy and 13% of the world's electricity.
What is the history of nuclear power?
Under the regime of the martial law, President Ferdinand Marcos announced the decision of building a nuclear power plant in the country. He signed a contract with Westinghouse to start the construction in Bataan. This nuclear power plant was to be the first and would still be the only commercial nuclear power plant in the whole Southeast Asia. However, after the hysteria following the 3 Mile power plant in Pennsylvania, the construction of the BNPP was stopped.
The fuel pallets are sealed in a metal tubes which is welded together to form a fuel bundle. Several thousands of these fuel bundles are then inserted in a tank called the calandria, which is the heart of the nuclear reactor. Nuclear generating systems split the uranium atoms in a process called fission, and the result is the release of a tremendous amount of heat. The water surrounds the fuel bundles and slows down tiny particles called the neutrons, so they are more likely to hit and split the uranium atoms. A chain reaction of atom splitting ensures that there is a constant source of heat to heat the water. The heated water is pumped through the reactor in a closed system to a set of boilers, where it boils ordinary water to high-pressured steam. The water, having done its job, is recirculated back to the reactor to pick more heat and cool the fuel. The high-pressured steam made from ordinary water is transported through pipes to a large turbine, where it pushes the blades and turns the shaft connected to a router generator, causing it to spin. This spinning router is a large electromagnet that produces a rotating magnetic field. This field moves across coils of copper wire, producing electricity that is transmitted through these transmission lines. The steam coming out of the turbine is condensed back into water and pumped it back to the boilers to continue the whole process.
So what are the advantages of the nuclear power plant?
Nuclear reaction releases 1,000,000 times more energy as compared to hydroelectric or wind energy. Hence, a large amount of electricity can be generated. A single uranium fuel pellet, the size of a fingertip, contains as much energy as 70,000 cubic feet of natural gas, 11,380 pounds of coal, or 149 gallons of oil. This can be defended with the 5 sources and sizes we have. Another advantage is that although the cost of building a power plant is very high, the running costs are relatively low. This because we don't need. So this just to show that nuclear power plant is the best power plant for the Philippines in the year 2020 to 2050.
One advantage is that nuclear power plants also prevented the discharge of almost 650 million metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in 2010. This is equal to the amount of carbon dioxide released from nearly all public utility
So a person living within 50 miles of a nuclear power plant can absorb only 0.09 microsieverts of radiation, which is less than the amount of eating in an animal. So 1 sievert of radiation can cause illness if it is all taken at once, and 8 sieverts of radiation will cause death. So what are we afraid of a nuclear power plant? Because it only produces 0.09 microsieverts of radiation.
and it will run for up to 70 years. Yay!
What are the disadvantages of nuclear power?
Just like in any power plant or machine, there's always a disadvantage. So here are the flaws of our power plant. First, it is non-renewable. We don't depend on what nature is giving us. Because of this, we are not not highly dependent on the current of the seas, the wind, or the sun, which are all unexpected or can't be controlled. Second is that it is expensive. Yeah, expensive. As we have said before, yes, the construction prices are high, but the running costs are low after it.
Third is the waste products. Yes, uranium has a half-life of 4.47 billion years. Wow, it's so long, right? But we can dispose these waste materials through 3 simple ways. First, the breed reactor. Second, the Purex. Lastly, it can be buried below the earth. Fourth is the high risk associated with accidents. Chernobyl, Fukushima, 3-mile accident, which will be explained later. And lastly, the limited supply of uranium here in the Philippines.
The initial explosion resulted in the death of 2 workers. 28 of the firemen and emergency cleanup workers died in the first 3 months after the explosion. So if you will total it, it will result to 30. So 30 deaths compared to the deaths annually by the coal and oil power plants, it is much far less. So let's talk about health risks and death fatalities. So in 1 year, over 4,000 US coal miners are injured, and nearly 24,000 people die prematurely because of the carbon dioxide and the smoke and all the other byproducts that these power plants give off. So the Chernobyl power plant is the perfect example of what not to do with a nuclear power plant. First, it has a faulty design. An unstable reactor, it was operated in an experiment with all the security systems disconnected, and it was followed by a panicked response by the civil authorities.
Here are some of the acts and decrees about the nuclear power plant. Declaration of Policy of the Department of Energy Act of 1992, Republic Act 5207, Republic Act 2067 or the Philippine Science Act of 1958, Administrative Order number 293, Executive Order number 243, Presidential Decree number 1484.
Our world is ever-growing, and the way we respond to energy demands must go along with it. By 2020, there will be an additional of 2 billion people placing higher demands on electricity, and no fossil fuels can satisfy this demand without further harming our environment. Likewise, renewable sources such as wind and solar will not be realistic enough to be a solution to meet this demand.
So what's the best nuclear power plant? The AP1000.
A central feature of this system is an 800,000-gallon water tank positioned directly above the containment shell. The reservoir's valves rely on electrical power to remain closed. When power is lost, the valves open and the water flows down toward the containment shell. Vents passively draw air from outside and direct it over the structure, furthering the evaporative cooling. Keeping the reactor submerged in water is crucial to avoid a meltdown. In the event of a severe accident, an operator can manually flood the cavity around the reactor. In an emergency, a crew of 11 can remain safely inside an AP1000 control room for 3 days. High-pressure air bottles create a pressure differential between the room and the reactor that keeps out radioactive dusts and steam.
The AP1000 shell building is made of 3-foot thick reinforced concrete sandwiched by 3/4-inch steel plating. Simplification was a major design objective for AP1000. The simplified plant design includes overall safety systems, normal operating systems, the control room, construction techniques and instrumentation and control system. The result is a plant that is easier and less expensive to build, operate, and maintain. And because of the smaller, simpler plant design, the AP1000 require less equipment and infrastructure to test and maintain. Lower operating and maintenance requirements also save money in the form of smaller maintenance staffs. The selection of proven components ensures a high degree of reliability to reduce maintenance. Standardization of components reduces spare parts inventories, training requirements, and shorter maintenance
times are achieved. Additionally, built-in testing is provided for critical components.
Nuclear power plants generate tremendous amounts of energy, which for a developing country like ours would be a great help. But before we move into drastic measures such as those, maybe we should consider renewable sources of energy first.
My thoughts about nuclear power? Well, in terms of the technicality or the benefit, I'm sure or I believe that the benefits are high, but in terms of cost, the initial capital expense is big, but at the end of the day or after several months of using that, the cost of creating that or building that would be able to the benefit that we can get is able to justify the cost that we have and for that. But in terms of the effect, so I still believe that we really have to check on the effect or the benefits are high, we always check on the best what are the harms that it can cause. So, thank you.
Thank you. Nuclear is hazardous, but it's so powerful.
I think nuclear power plant is very difficult to contain because it needs a lot of we did a lot of good experts and a high level of expertise for us to really maintain nuclear power plant. But in terms of its benefit in the economy of the country, I think it's very useful because if we have a nuclear power plant, we can do large scale manufacturing like cars or heavy equipment and something like that. It's very useful for the economy of the country.
Nuclear power plant is one of the most efficient sources of energy. Based on records, most of the highly modernized countries are having one, meaning it is one component in order for a country to be industrialized. Just make sure that everything will be system going in order for you to control the adverse effect. If indeed it will be done.
Go nuclear!